Dina, can you identify like any specific market that has like more business that are interested in the gay issues? I mean, I don't know, like retail or technology. I don't know any market in specific.
You know, in the history of the Corporate Equality Index, for a long time, the industry with the most 100%ers was banking and financial services. And that remained until we started surveying law firms. And you may know, but law firms are highly competitive. And so if one law firm has that designation of the best places to work for LGBT equality at a job fair, many more follow in suit, and they follow in suit very quickly. So exactly. So right now our law firms are banking and financial services. Some of the newer industries, the Googles of the world, have surged ahead on LGBT equality.
Like technology.
Yeah, technology, exactly. And many. I think it surprises some, but many much older, iconic American companies, from Xerox to Kodak to Levi Strauss to General Mills to Coca-Cola. These are all businesses that are top ranked and have been working on LGBT equality for a long time.
Can you tell us a bit about how you got to HRC or what you did before?
Certainly. So I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, so politics is never too far from the mind. So I actually stayed in D.C. through my master's degree in sociology. And I focused on research. I worked for an outfit that did research on women in political jobs. And that has served me well because a lot of the continued issues around gender in the workplace are very similar to some more subtle biases against LGBT people. So it's rare that someone is told outright, I don't think you're fit for this job because of X, Y, or Z. It's these more subtle ways in which, they sometimes refer to, an old boy network of, the guys go out to play golf or the guys go out to drinks and where are the women of similar, at a similar level in the organization. So what are these more nuanced ways in which a career can be hindered simply because of an aspect of who you are that you don't change, whether it's being a woman, being a person of color, being LGBT. So I did that, and then I worked in political fundraising, primarily with, then it was the Hillary Clinton for President campaign and the American Civil Liberties Union. And so then 5 years ago, this job had opened up at HRC. I didn't think I would ever be at HRC because it was such a daydream of mine. I thought, oh, well, that would never happen. So I hung in there and got the job, and I've been there since 2007.
So we know what you're doing, but what are your interests here in Mexico? Why you are here in Mexico? And you told us that you were having like meetings with business, but why? You are working out for Latin America, which is the purpose of this?
Well, I'm actually here by invitation from the U.S. Embassy and the programming that they've organized around LGBT inclusion, social inclusion. And so, similar to last year, it's a combination of talking about how we do our work at the Human Rights Campaign, specifically with my project. What does it mean to engage with private sector companies in this shared mission of LGBT equality? So some of it has to do with these more public forums and dialogue around that. Second is that, as I mentioned, we work primarily with Fortune companies. Now, many of those have operations abroad. Mm-hmm. And so what we've done now in the last few years of the Corporate Equality Index is to actually build out questions regarding their global policies. And, now this being my second trip to Mexico, there are certain names that I'll drop of top-rated businesses that get a very different reaction here. And what that can mean is the extent to which the organization or the company is LGBT inclusive in the U.S. is perhaps not actually getting translated here. And so that's a priority for us to work on that global consistency of the policies, benefits.
So I mean, you are rating right now in the global, in other countries, not in the United States, we have the same policies?
Yes, we're actually looking at that now. It doesn't quite, not to be too technical about it, but it doesn't factor into a company's rating right now because right now it is still US only. but we're in a year-long phase of collecting more information about global operations, doing more collaboration with global LGBT groups, and also embarking on very in-depth legal research to ensure that when these highly egregious laws, such as the one in Uganda, is moving forward, you've probably heard of this, with severe penalties for homosexuality, that even with those laws on the books, the initial sense, at least from our legal minds, is that that doesn't necessarily impede a private business's ability to have non-discrimination policies in place. So we're in that planning phase right now, and so part of this is also a trip in which I can learn from that experience of U.S. headquartered businesses, what the workforce on the ground here in Mexico City, for example, what that's really like. So that's part of it. And then the next component is that something I probably take for granted day to day is that I actually work within what's amounted to a very successful model of NGO management, from their fundraising apparatus to the ways in which we collaborate with other civil rights organizations. And so some of that is really just to have dialogue here with NGOs in Mexico City, and exactly, and talk through, here are some of the potential pitfalls that many NGOs will face. Here's a model of success in terms of new media engagement. Everybody right now wants to be on Twitter and Facebook, and it seems like there are all these opportunities, but how do you harness that in a way that is really true to your organizational mission, that remains effective in terms of how you're engaging with people. So some of that is just dialogue around broader NGO work, of course, with more of an emphasis on LGBT.
I don't know if you like to do it, but can you tell us some names of companies that they are not working with the different policies? I mean, the United States policy that it's like helping LGBT people, and here in Mexico they are not helping.
Well, I can't at this point, because I would only want to speak to that if I had a verified, if I had verifiable data, which I don't. At the same time, just anecdotally, it's important for us to follow up on what we hear. So no, I won't name names. I mean, I'll be direct with you. I'm not going to name names because I haven't verified that information. But at the same time, that's not really any different from phone calls we get in DC from someone who's in an Arkansas or a Florida office saying, my company's 100%, but it really doesn't feel like 100% around here. Wow. So we do strike a balance between maintaining the integrity of our scoring and our corporate equality index, and we have accompanying programs that address those cultural disconnects in a workplace. So in other words, just because you have the non-discrimination policies in place, for example, what we found in a national study is that still a little over half of all LGBT Americans remain basically closeted at work. And that's not something that's really necessarily the domain of legislation or policy. That's where you have to come in and really engage with the company's leadership to say, how can we address these gaps? What's this disconnect that on Monday morning when everybody's saying, oh, what'd you do this weekend? What'd you do this weekend? That, for example, the gay band can't offer up, oh yeah, my partner and I saw that movie without it becoming awkward or he feels isolated. So we are very careful to maintain the integrity of that data and the information we know about a business, and at the same time follow up with concerns that inevitably come from the community. So,
for example, you rate a company, but after that you can receive you are checking constantly that those...
You do follow up work, no?
Exactly. And actually, we do verify. Most of my summer is spent looking at, insurance contracts and non-discrimination policies. So we don't just take companies' words for it. We verify the documentation that comes in.
But do you also interview employees, gay employees or something?
We do for a different kind of program, which is really around training and cultural aspects. And the reason for that is, we want the corporate equality index to be as crystal clear as possible. That it's not about whether the 50 employees that I happen to interview have a mixed sense of their business. That what I want to be able to communicate, for example, to the graduating college student is when you go to this company, based on the information that we've verified, they have their non-discrimination policy, they have benefits in place, they have an employee resource group, they do some public engagement. So I don't want it to be too subjective, is what I mean. Yeah.
And in the case of Mexico, maybe the companies want to make a global policy.
Right.
But and the federal law here in Mexico is kind of different. I mean, we don't have access yet to the social security or something like that. So if the company want to protect to the employee, to the LGBT employee, but they have a kind of restriction of a federal law, how you can help to the company to, I don't know, like if Coca-Cola or something like that want to share the benefits of LGBT people here in Mexico, they can't because the federal law is not specific. How you can help to the companies to do that?
Well, broadly speaking, the fact that a government is not doing something does not mean that a business can't do that. And what I mean by that is I even get phone calls from businesses saying, well, our insurance contract, or we define relationships based on how the federal government defines relationships. Now that's their prerogative to do that, but there's no legal restriction on this business offering domestic partner benefits. And so we're often in a position to respond to that because that if it's an argument, it doesn't really hold water because the business can go ahead and offer these partner benefits. In terms of maybe the next level of your question though is really, can businesses become agents for change? Can they have a voice in actually changing laws? And the U.S. experience is, a resounding yes. We have businesses that are testifying on Capitol Hill to get ENDA passed, to explain that this is their business practice, it's been good for their business. We have businesses that signed on to an amicus brief challenging the Defense of Marriage Act. So there is certainly a place for businesses, in their own words, in other words, what is their own business, what are the key drivers as a business to want to change this law? Because typically businesses are not going to necessarily speak in the language of NGOs or the language of the moral, the right thing to do. It'll sometimes be a combination of here's why this is good for our business and it's the right thing to do.
That's great.
Here, talking about the programs of the universities, here in Mexico we have a lot of schools and university, business schools and something. But sometimes when we go there and talk about LGBT business or peer market or LGBTism, something like that, the students have like oh really? It's like, oh yeah, kids have money or something. So at the universities they don't have the kind of information. I mean the programs.
You mean like a student who goes to business school? They don't teach him or her
exactly
about this whole market.
So are you working on that in that kind of stage of because they go to have a business in the future? So
well, that torch isn't carried primarily by me or by my project. It's been carried though by the top consulting firms, some of the banking and financial services. Every year in the States there's a program and a summit called Reaching Out MBA. So this is an LGBT-focused Masters of Business Administration career fair. So the extent to which, at least the profile of not only LGBT MBAs, but this market, why this is a business issue, it is being raised. I just know that students that contact us for data, for example, usually 2 weeks before the deadline, they want to know, they're making, they're using case studies. I mean, in the last couple of years, actually, the Harvard Business Review, probably the most watched, periodical for that trade, has profiled different LGBT issues. So I think it's maybe not an aspect of direct advocacy, but instead it's more a result of educating the right people, making sure that people have this corporate equality index, that they have a buyer's guide, that they're aware of the marketing data. And it's up to different essays or LGBTA groups within the business school to do that as well, to introduce them to the conversation.